The UK's King Charles has been diagnosed with cancer and will halt public duties as he undergoes treatment.
As Israeli airstrikes continue on hospitals in Gaza, the international community is searching for a solution to the conflict.
EU Foreign Policy Chief calls on countries to divert military aid to Ukraine.
The UK's King Charles has been diagnosed with a form of cancer and has begun treatment. Less than 18 months into his reign, the 75-year-old monarch will suspend his public duties, but will continue as head of state and carry on with his constitutional roles. The palace didn't say what form of cancer the king has, but confirmed that it's not related to his recent treatment for a benign prostate condition. It added that the king was remaining positive and chose to share his diagnosis to help with public understanding and for all those around the world affected by cancer. Charles became king in September 2022 when his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, died at the age of 96. His son, Prince Harry, will travel to the UK from California in the coming days to see him.
Paramedics bring the dead and injured to a central Gaza hospital on Sunday after the latest in a day of deadly Israeli strikes on the town of Deir al-Balah. At least 7 people were killed and 15 others injured when a strike hit a house in the town. Israeli airstrikes across Gaza appear to be intensifying, particularly in the southern city of Rafah, a tiny pocket of the territory where more than 1 million people are now sheltering. Amid growing tensions in Israel's government over the war, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in the region for his 5th trip since the militant group Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, killing at least 1,200 people and taking about 250 people hostage. Meanwhile, his French counterpart, Stéphane Séjourné, traveled to Egypt.
Nous œuvrons en faveur d'un cessez-le-feu, mais nous devons également préparer le retour de l'autorité palestinienne à Gaza avec une gouvernance renouvelée. Sa légitimité dépendra aussi du respect effectif des prérogatives, notamment par les Israéliens. Elle dépendra enfin de sa capacité à obtenir des résultats tangibles pour la sécurité et le quotidien des Palestiniens et pour la reconnaissance de leurs droits politiques.
At the moment, the emphasis is on increasing the trickle of humanitarian aid being allowed into Gaza. The UN has warned of an impending famine affecting about 2 million people. The US plans more strikes in the Middle East against Iran-backed groups, according to its National Security Council spokesman. John Kirby gave the warning hours after a series of US air assaults on dozens of sites in Iraq and Syria used by Iranian-backed militants. They were in retaliation for the drone strike that killed 3 US troops in Jordan last weekend.
This wasn't just a message-sending routine tonight. This was about degrading capability, taking away, in a more robust way than we have in the past, taking away capabilities by the militant groups. These responses began tonight. They're not going to end tonight.
Meanwhile, funerals have been held in Baghdad for one of the militants killed in the US strikes. The air raid had been followed by another attack conducted by a coalition of US allies against 36 Houthi targets in Yemen. Houthi rebels have been attacking international shipping in the Red Sea, claiming it was in support of the Palestinians in Gaza. The US says it is not seeking to escalate the Israeli war with Hamas and is conducting talks with numerous countries in the region. But analysts say Washington is treading a diplomatic tightrope.
European member states could step up military support to Ukraine by delaying and diverting military contracts with other countries, said the EU's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell while in Warsaw with his Polish counterpart. Ukraine is grappling with obstacles on many fronts, including a diminishing supply of missiles, artillery and other weapons on the battlefield. It comes as renewed Russian airstrikes in January caused a huge upsurge in civilian casualties and destruction across the country.
The quickest and cheapest and more effective way of increasing our supply of munition to Ukraine is to stop exporting to third countries. And this is something that only member states can do. And this has been my request. The best way of selling more to Ukraine or donating more to Ukraine is to try to tell the others, please, wait. We are not at war. You can wait some months and divert this production to Ukraine. This is a political decision that member states have to take.
The picture is mixed. The EU managed to pass €50 billion of financial aid to keep the country running, and Germany has doubled to €8 billion its military support. Although some countries haven't fulfilled all of their promises of military aid. Kyiv is also still counting on $60 billion worth of support from the US Congress, which has been held up by the Republican Party. Meanwhile, experts also say Russia, which has a much bigger manpower and financial support, is not making any substantial gains.
And if you look at the Ukrainian side, you see a lot of problems, and you've indicated the key ones: manpower problems, problems with outside support, and then air defenses, which Russia has been doing all it can to degrade, are not in great shape, and that's where Western and specifically U.S. aid is so important. On the other hand, on the Russian side, over the last 14, 16, 18 months, Russia has made minuscule progress on the battlefield. You know, Russia expended huge numbers of troops to take the city of Bakhmut before the war, a city of 70,000. Very dubious strategic value. They still haven't really finished that operation.
The EU is also currently considering a €5 billion top-up of military aid due in early March. Shona Murray, Euronews.
Francesco Giorgi, one of the defendants in a corruption scandal that rocked the European Parliament, has brought new evidence to try to bring down the trial. It is a recorded conversation to which Euronews has been given access, in which the chief investigator questions the credibility of the most prominent repentant in the case. Referring to former MEP Antonio Panzeri, the suspected ringleader who struck a deal to collaborate with investigators, the policeman says,
Ne croyez pas que parce qu'il dit des choses et qu'on le filme que nous on le croit. Hein. On croit rien de ce qu'il dit. Hein. On croit rien de ce qu'il dit. On sait très bien qu'il nous mène en bateau. On le sait, mais tout ça va péter. Quand ça va péter, ça va péter. Et lui, il prendra ses responsabilités. Et je sais qu'il nous ment.
The conversation was secretly recorded by Giorgi, who is a defendant along with his partner Eva Kaili, on his mobile phone when the senior policeman visited his home last May. During the exchange, the policeman also complains about the role of the judges.
Je n'ai aucune confiance dans la justice, parce que la justice, elle est tirée par les ficelles par des politiciens. Je n'ai aucune confiance dans le monde politique, je n'ai aucune confiance dans l'Union européenne, et je n'ai aucune confiance dans les fonctionnaires européens. Aucune. Et plus le temps passe, et plus ça me donne raison.
The audio file is part of the evidence that Giorgi's defence has produced in an up-teamed effort to bring down the trial. 6 people remain indicted and await trial on charges of accepting bribes to defend the interests of countries such as Qatar and Morocco. Both countries deny the allegations.
This Tuesday marks 1 year since the devastating earthquake in Turkey. Many of the 700,000 left homeless by the earthquake are still living in tents. In Antioch, the hardest-hit city, 90% of its buildings were destroyed. Survivors are still waiting for the help promised by government.
Bulletin bize herhangi daha şu ana kadar bir açıklama yapmadı. Yıktılar, kaldırdılar, yıkıldı. Ev vereceğiz diyorlar.
Some residents were rehomed in shipping containers and others in tents despite freezing temperatures.
Akşam çok soğuk. Sabah birazdan var.
8 members of his family also live here.
Burada 3 tane, bir tane burada. Ben orada yatıyorum, bir de kardeşim küçük orada yatıyor. Hastaneye gittik, bir şey vermeyeceğiz.
Turkish authorities want to start reconstruction efforts by rebuilding businesses to kickstart the economy. But this time, anti-seismic standards will be respected.
Austria wants to get more homeless people off the streets and is making hundreds of affordable rental flats available. One of the candidates is Andreas. As a teenager in Vienna, he slipped straight from his parents' house into homelessness.
Mein Vater hat mich dann am nächsten Tag einfach nur in der Früh aufgeweckt und gesagt, wir werden delogiert. Dementsprechend bin ich halt mit 18 dann noch da gestanden und habe nicht gewusst, die ganze Welt bricht zusammen, die ganzen Freunde wenden sich von einem ab, weil man plötzlich irgendwie quasi Abschaum ist.
For 6 years, his life revolved around homeless shelters and drug abuse. Thanks to the Housing First initiative, Andreas finally found a flat and then a job.
Wo ich dann auch offiziell mit den Schlüssel das erste Mal in die Wohnung reingegangen bin, alles leer gewesen, aber ich bin drin gestanden und habe mir gedacht, wow, nicht groß, 24 Quadratmeter, Einzimmerwohnung, aber meine Wohnung.
Im vergangenen Jahrzehnt ist die Zahl der Obdachlosen in Europa massiv gestiegen. Nur wenige Länder schaffen es, Menschen dauerhaft von der Straße zu holen, wie etwa Finnland, das bereits seit 15 Jahren erfolgreich auf Housing First setzt. Auch Österreich beschreitet nun den finnischen Weg.
Hallo, sind das jetzt die neuen Housing First Plan? Super. Das ist der Stellenwert von einer Wohnung. Also für Menschen wie Andreas, aber für mich, für alle. Ohne Wohnung, ohne Bleibe, ohne Zuhause, mit Rückzug, aber allem, was einfach normal ist in unserer Gesellschaft, wie Wasser. Also das ist ja das, ich glaube, man kann sich nicht ganz vorstellen, was heißt Obdachlosigkeit wirklich.
Austria's government wants to move more than 1,000 homeless people into flats by September. They will then usually cover their rental costs with welfare money from the state, although many, just like Andreas, succeed in finding a job once they have a stable place to live.